So hi, so I'm just taking some time to talk about this assignment one that we have, right? So it is pretty simple. It's just to get your hands warm, right? Assignment number two would be a more involved than this assignment is. So this essentially is just creating, EC2 instances. I'm going to create, and we are going to go to the GitHub. We are going to upload the files over there. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about GitHub and how you are supposed to use Git. It is one way to use Git, and then followed by that, I'm just going to add a couple of things by which you could make it even better. Like that won't be just to extend the boundaries and make your project look better and have stuff there. So starting with, let's talk about AWS. So AWS is one of the leaders for in cloud computing, right? So in our case, we are going to keep it very simple, right? We are going to just create an account. Okay, that's again click on the button here, aws.amazon.com, create a new account, and you should be all set on that. I'm going to sign into my account, right? So yeah, there we go. Now once you sign in, this would be your management console, right? So what cloud allows us to do, or specifically AWS allows us you to do, is you can ask for services anytime you want. So for example, if I need something to do with databases, I can ask, hey, give me a database, and it will give it to you, right? You don't have to worry about provisioning and storage and networking and all those other stuff. In our case, of course, there are many services that they provide. The one which we are interested today is called EC2, or is called Elastic Compute 2. It is essentially like a small virtual machine in the cloud. So imagine a small, server or a small compute node, a small, I would say, computer that is hosted in by someone else, and you have access to it via the internet, right? So it can be used for many applications. If you want to start your own application, like your own web application, which we will be doing, you want to host something and just play around with general compute. Like you could use it for assignments that involve uh, you know distributed computing. So you could have your custom code run over there, and then it could be scaled across thousands of machines, and that works then. So just to glance over it, on the right, we have the right top corner is where you could see uh, these zones, or I would say the centers, or the places where the data centers are. Let me recollect what they call, in it's called availability zones. Yeah. So there's a data center in North Virginia, there's another in Ohio, and so on, right? So I usually, what happens is, some students select US2 instead of US1, and vice versa, and then they cannot find their instances. So remember this, right? You are booking a machine, right? You're booking a machine in one of the remote data centers. So you need to make sure that you're selecting the right data center in the first place. So here I'm just going to select North Virginia. Okay, I'm going to search for EC2 here. There we go, right? I'm going to click on EC2, and it's going to take me through a wizard. As you can see here, I don't have any running in instances right now, right? In this region, I don't have anything running. That might change if you change your region. Make sure you always use the same region, all right, at least to begin with. Then you can always do geographic redundancies and all those things, right? For now, let's just get our hands dirty. I'm going to create a new instance. I'm going to ask AWS to launch a new instance for me. When I click on this, I'm going to click on the blue button, right? To begin with, I'm just going to select the Ubuntu server. You can select any one of these, right? But only these are free tier eligible. What that means is you have 750 hours of free compute that will not be charged. In this case, I'm just going to select this, right? I'm going to select the T2 micro, that is the free tier eligible, because that won't charge me much. I'm going to click on review and launch. We don't need to specify a lot of things here. When I click on launch here, it should ask me to add keys. There we go. Now, recollect that I mentioned we are essentially asking for a compute node. somewhere else. So how would you access it, right? So now imagine your friend has your laptop, okay, and he's hosting it for you. Let's say he's keeping the laptop in his dorm room, and you're supposed to access it from the library. Now how would you do that, right? One way to access your any machine remotely is by using SSH. Now it is one of the uh, most used way to securely access your remote machine for Linux instances, right? In this case, I'm going to create a new key pair. Consider, of course, you can learn about cryptography in the dedicated course that we have, but to give it in a nutshell, we have a public key and a private key, right? Here I'm just going to create my key name. I'm going to, it's like a lock and key, right? I'm going to create a key name, let's just say 418 lab, just because, right? I'm going to download the key pair. Now Amazon is going to create a key pair for me. Now you have to remember to store this file in a very secure location. Don't lose it, because once you lose it, this is essentially, you're essentially losing the key to your instance. If you click on this here, we can see that the instance is pending. That means that AWS is essentially trying to reserve things for you, and is going to create an instance. By the time the machine is getting created, I'm going to take some time and go through these uh, information that we have in the bottom. Now every instance that you create would have a public DNS IPv4, right? So this is essentially like a URL, like you say google.com. Hey, there we have this URL. Anybody with this URL can access can reach your server, right? This is your public IP address. Now remember, this machine is facing the internet. So AWS gives you a free IP address. You can assign multiple IPs, but that is out of the scope for now. We have, so essentially, if the server is accessible using this IPv4 address of the internet. Rest other things, they're not so important as of now. They just give you things that are, what is the root device type, and EBS, and basically just the EBS is your storage. Let's just say you have this machine, right, and you need to increase the size of the hard disk you have that is attached. You can always increase that is one of the good things you have, right? Now remember what is happening here. It says instance state is running. So what we have done is AWS has started the thing and the server is running for you. One important thing to do here, so here you can see here that there's a bar. So if I scroll on to my right, see this, and it's going to give me the security groups. Now remember, every machine is behind a firewall. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to this inbound. I'm going to edit this. I'm going to add a rule. I'm going to say HTTP, right? And I'm going to say from anywhere. What I'm telling AWS, this instance that we had, remember I mentioned we have this server running in the data center. I'm configuring the firewall to allow port 80. That is your standard port for HTTP connections, right? So we'll go through basics of HTTP in some time, I think, in the lecture. But HTTP is essentially the protocol that we use when communicating with any website on the internet. Now there's another one. I'm going to add HTTPS. That is a secure version of HTTP, right? And here I'm going to select anywhere again. The default port is 80 and 443. Okay, so I'm going to select save. What would this allows us to do is it allows anybody on the internet to contact the server on these ports. Now, to talk a little bit about HTTP, when you go to google.com, right, what you're doing here is you're accessing this server, in this case on port 443. Now, any organism or anything that we have, essentially the way this works is, there's only certain ports. Let's say you have a country, right? You only have a certain ports where ships can come in or flights can land. You don't allow anybody to come on anywhere, right? Because you have to maintain stuff. You have to ensure that with the parties and are in the proper stuff. So what happens is when you say google.com here, 443 is usually hidden. So you cannot see that we are contacting the google.com server on port 443. Now when you say you arrived at the US, where did you arrive? US is a very big company, a very big country. So there are certain points of ingress that are allowed in the US. If you go to anywhere else, they're going to block you, right? So for example, you came at JFK, you came at Newark, right? You cannot come in, let's just say, the highway. If the plane cannot land there for multiple reasons, right? So what happens is, by default, how the web convention goes is that if you have 443 or port 80, they are not shown in the browser. So if I just say 443, so it's going to hide that for me. But there are ways. If you can say 8080, here I'm going to say this is the protocol I'm trying to use for my communication, right? This is the address of this server. The colon specifies the port number. In this case, I'm going to access 8080, right? So now remember, google.com server that is hosting this Google application, they don't allow anybody to access port 8080. So it's just going to say, hey, timed out, that the server is not responding at this port. That makes sense, right? So this is how you can specify ports. In this case, see, 8080 is visible, right? So that is it, about a little bit about HTTP and ports. Moving on. Remember, I have enabled these ports 80 and 443. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to access this server. See here, I'm running this as one. Now I'm going to access this server from my computer. It's pretty simple. I can click on the connect button, right? Now this usually never works. If you click on this, if you have a modern browser, it usually gives me this error. Like AWS has had this bug for a long time now. I have no idea why. But I didn't actually spend time to resolve it because I usually use the terminal. Now here I'm going to do this. See, there are three commands. So first of all, he says open an SSH client, right? If you're on Windows, they recommend using putty. The one that I recommend is called Bitwise, right? Bitwise is an excellent client that allows you to connect to another server using the SSH protocol. Remember, I allowed three addresses there. Port 22, that is your port for talking over SSH, right? Port 443, that is your default port for HTTPS, and port 80, that's a default port for HTTP. So in our case, I'm going to go just standard SSH client. If you use Bitwise, it's pretty simple. Let me see if I can demonstrate it for you. I'm going to connect to one of my Windows instances, right? Let's just see if I can. Oh, there we go, right? So if I open my Bitwise client, okay, let it load for a bit. Right, there we go. So now here in this case, I have this is one of our servers, which okay, we'll just talk about it later. But here you would put in your IPv4 address. Here would be Ubuntu, right? Right, and here would be your public key. So here, if I click public key, is only a client key. If you click on this client key manager, right, and you have to import one. When you import one, you can import the pem files. Wait a sec. Okay, I think Bitwise doesn't allow you to have pem files. Okay, fine. Let's just stick to putty then. Okay, for Windows, we'll go on Windows at the end. But for now, let's just look at the OS X, or if you have Linux machines running. It's pretty simple, right? So you remember I downloaded that key in the bottom. So I'm just going to go chmod 400. It's in my downloads, and 418. There we go. I'm going to say SSH, right? See here, it's a simple command. I'm going to do that. Oh, yeah, sorry. Now in this case, I'm going to go to instead of this, I'm specifying. So when I say SSH, so I'm calling my client, my secure shell client. When I say -I, I'm going to specify the key that I want to use. In this case, I'm going to specify the location of the key, right? Downloads, and there we go. Now it should ask me. I'm going to select yes. It added to known host, and there I am, right? So if I see my host name here, there we go. That is my that is my IP address of the machine. see here, that is my IP address of the machine. There you go. There we go. That it gives you my internal IP address, right? Because it's connected to the LAN and stuff. But okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run a few commands. I'm going to say sudo apt update. Now remember, we use iPhones, we use phones, right? So we have an app store. Now consider that to install any application on an Ubuntu system, it's called a package manager. But essentially, of course, I'm trying to oversimplify it for everybody. When I'm saying is, hey, sudo is essentially like an administrator command. Now to install a software, remember in Windows they always give a pop-up, hey, do you want to allow this installation, right? So essentially the same thing, but this is in a command line fashion. So when I say sudo, I'm saying super user do. So I'm saying, hey, the administrator should do what? I'm going to give apt. Now apt is the name of the app store. I'm going to say update. What I'm going to do is I'm going to update the lists that we have. Okay, that is what I did. Now let's say you want to install something. How do you install something? You open your app store, right, and you just go to the app that you want and you say install. Similarly, there's just a command for it. So I'm going to say apt install. I'm going to say NGINX, right? So what I'm telling my server is that, hey, as an administrator, I want the app store to install the app called as NGINX. Right? It's going to ask me, hey, it's going to take you so much of disk space. I'm going to say yes, that's okay for me. Now this would install stuff for you, and just wait, give it some time, and we should have things ready. Now if I go to my IP address here, hey, there we go. So we have NGINX installed. The default file for this is essentially like, if you go to cd var www, oh sorry, HTML. There we go. Now I'm going to say nano. I'm not sure nano install. So this is my HTML file. So nano is just a command line editor. Now you can exit that using Control X. All right, and what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to say welcome to, instead of NGINX, I'm going to modify it to say welcome to 418y. All right, I'm going to remove these lines. And okay, you see what happened here, right? When I said Control O, that is used to write out, that is to save your file, right? It has permission denied, because remember, I did not add sudo before it, right? So because this file was protected, I could not add those things here. So here I'm going to say welcome to, there we go, welcome to, let's just say, or you could create your own HTML, right? I'm just gonna do that. Let's just say welcome to 418, right? And instead of the I'm going to keep the same style, and I'm going to say welcome to 418, right? And with Control O, it's gonna say, right, see, it says wrote 25 lines. There we go. And when I say Control X, it's going to exit that file. If I refresh this now, there you go, welcome to 418y. Simple, right? So for our project, all we are supposed to do is change this file. Pretty simple, right? So what I'm going to do here is, let's just say I create a new file, sudo index.html, sorry, sudo nano, right? And I just say blah blah blah, something like that. It's gonna render that, because as a priority, anything with index.html comes before this index.nginx-debian.html. So usually whatever you write in index.html should come here. Now whatever I write will come in here, right? Pretty simple. Now that is essentially what it is. Okay, again, there we go. So if I, of course, this is going to fall back to the old that we have. So ls command should give you, it should list the files that you have in the current directory. So a very important command. You use it every single time. cd is used to change your directory, right? So if I say pwd, that's your current working directory. That is your current, where you're currently working in. So if you enter cd, it can go to any directory you want. Some basic Unix commands, right? This would essentially, you have created an EC2 instance. Now, did I miss anything? Give me a sec. Okay. I think that should be it. Now, of course, I'll talk about GitHub in the next video just to keep this one really short, right? So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you, guys.